Greetings, beloved brothers and sisters. Sometimes when people hear some of the things I am supposed to have said on my time on earth, I may sound judgmental and harsh, especially in my treatment of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. I think there's a basic misunderstanding that I would like to address. There was a prophecy many, many, many years ago that there would be a king born amongst the Jews who would rise up and rule the Jews. And in ancient Rome, that was seen as something that was very threatening. The Jewish population was terribly oppressed, and consequently, they rose and rose and rose in numbers. They grew in numbers. You may wonder, why would an oppressed people with not enough food and not enough sustenance keep making more babies? But that is what happens under stress, that the act of creation is actually the only thing left to people. It's the only thing that's life affirming when everything else has been shut down. And so more and more and more babies are created, and that becomes more and more of a threat to the oppressors. So Herod had a father who passed a rule that all of these newborn sons would all be killed. And this was done to prevent the prophecy from happening. But his son, who's also called Herod, was ruling over a divided land. And it was a difficult thing to manage these Jews because while oppressing them, they continued to multiply. And there were two groups of people who made peace with the Romans by showing that they could be allies in controlling the Jewish population so that there was not going to be an uprising. One of these groups was the Sadducees. These were the wealthy. These were the people who had wealth and power and made their peace with the Romans by saying, don't worry, we can keep these people in line. You let us have our power and our wealth, and we'll keep things going. And it'll be manageable. And the other group that had even more power were the Pharisees. And they were about trying to preserve Mosaic law, the law of Moses. So they became stricter and stricter and stricter and held up all of these do's and don'ts and shoulds and shouldn'ts, starting from the Ten Commandments, but also the 5 books of Moses. And so they were presenting themselves as pious and were reading the prayers and wearing the prayer shawls and doing everything correctly. Their point was, you have to be a perfect Jew. And what I saw was both of these groups, the ones who had made their peace with the Romans by having wealth and being in control, and then the ones who were becoming pedantic about the rules and regulations, were both missing the mark entirely. And that's what I called out. If you have the appearance of piety, but in your heart you hold judgment and enmity, resentment, greed, envy, then you are not of God at all. And if you put your faith in making peace in the world and amassing your wealth and being in control and having a life that way, you're not of God at all. And that's what I was pointing out. This is what hypocrisy is. It's the appearance of purity or the appearance of goodness while hiding what Jung would call the shadow self, the dark side of one. And it just will not bring you what you want. The only thing will bring you what you want is love. And the only thing that was missing in all of these good works and prayers and rituals and ceremonies was the heart. There was no heart in it. And this is a pathway of the heart. This is why it's so important to go beyond appearances. That if you're following the rule called, if I don't have anything nice to say, I won't say anything at all, that's not enough. To not say anything and yet to harbor judgment and fear and separation in your heart blocks you from the grace of God. And that was my message. Not to judge, not to be harsh, not to make people bad and wrong, but to point out that there is no other way to get to God that doesn't have love in it. It has to encompass everything and everyone. Love covers all sins. Love releases all blockages. It's actually easier than all of the complications and all of the accommodations that are made to Caesar or to follow the scriptures religiously. Love is what everyone wants, and that has to be manifested in your heart. This is a pathway of the heart. That's what you follow. Make room in your heart for people who are different from you, who are less fortunate than you, and you'll know what to do. You'll know how to be. You'll know what to say. Let love be your guide. I love you very much. I'll speak with you again soon.